Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Friday, December 9th, 2022. The trio is back together. I'm your host, George Kerth, joined by Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap. Are we feeling festive here coming into week 14, the final week of the fantasy regular season?
Feeling depressed. I'm in a league of record. I'm in a game that doesn't even matter.
Against me, and it matters for
I
me.
missed the playoffs.
Yeah, that is definitely upsetting. I'll say out of my 10 leagues, I made the playoffs in like 4. So it's been a rough year. I think fantasy started so strange that it was kind of hard to bounce back after a rough start. I definitely figured it out eventually, but it was too late.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of listeners out there the same way, but I'm sure we also helped a lot of people get into their fantasy playoffs. I know Tyler specifically said on Monday how he should have taken his own advice instead of giving good advice and then taking other people's advice. So that probably didn't help you.
Nope. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. We'll help you out when you need it, but we are going to help you out a lot on this episode. We're going to hit some NFL news and notes, and we're going to break down every Week 14 game in our Week 14 preview. Make sure you find us on thecouchgms.com and our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at The Couch GMs. And you can join our Discord chat to talk to us 24/7 about any questions, just talk some smack, or talk about football in general. The link to that is in the description of the video or podcast you are watching. All right, guys, let's jump right in here to NFL news. We mentioned on our early week show that Baker Mayfield was released by the Carolina Panthers, and it is now official. He has been claimed by the LA Rams. Now, obviously, they played on Thursday. There was an outside chance we're told that he could play. We might know if he's going to play or not before the end of this episode, but you know more than we do here. I didn't expect the Rams to claim him because they're pretty much out of it. But what are your guys' thoughts on this move?
I want to hear Tyler's thoughts, and then I'll give mine.
Okay.
Definitely an interesting move, to say the least. Yeah, I'm not really sure where the headspace is. I'd love to know what the reasoning is. Is it because they really do believe they still have a chance to come back because, the NFC is a crapshoot and they have a chance to, their division's really not as bad as you'd think? Do you think it's because they think Baker Mayfield is the future and Matt Stafford's on his downturn? Probably not. Or do they just want to bring in an extra guy because it's not often you see a number 1 overall pick quarterback hit the market and you're running with John Wolford? Why not? Not really sure the move, but at the same time, I still don't hate it. I hate that they claimed him rather than signing it because, you take that hit on cap. And I did see the report that no other team put in a claim for Baker Mayfield. It was just the Rams. I think everybody was kind of waiting for him to hit free agency so they could sign him cheap. If anybody was interested in him. I don't hate the move. I don't love the move. I'm just interested to see what the usage is going to be now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the cap's that big of a deal. There's only 5 games left. It's the last year of his deal, so they're only having to take on that little bit. But I actually really like this move for the Rams. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Matt Stafford has a neck injury, and necks are always scary, and there's a chance that he never plays football again. Last I heard, it's a bruised spinal cord. That just sounds scary in itself. Now, because they just traded for Matt Stafford a year ago, which you could argue, I've seen some Twitter stuff that trade wasn't worth it. He took them to a Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. The trade was worth it. But they don't have a first-round pick. So now they get Baker Mayfield, a former first-round pick. Ironically, their 3rd straight first-round pick quarterback, or first overall pick quarterback to now start for them. But they get 4 weeks, 5 weeks of Baker Mayfield. If he gels, they can sign him to an extension. If Matt Stafford's not going to be there, it's almost like getting an early evaluation on a guy that will be available next offseason when you could be in the quarterback market. And I know that he wasn't claimed, but it also did prevent the 49ers, who is a division rival, from getting a quarterback and having a quote-unquote better season.
But I have to mention the 49ers when you say that, because there was a report that we don't know if it was true or false that him and Baker Mayfield and Christian McCaffrey didn't gel, and that Christian McCaffrey threatened to not play if they tried to bring in Baker Mayfield and start him. So, like, I don't know if that was just a player beef there, or is there character concerns with Baker? I know there's character concerns going back to college with him, but are there still character concerns with Baker?
I think it's Baker. Like you know what you're getting in the guy. I have a hard time believing that they were like that's actually went and said I'm not going to play. Like McCaffrey, he's playing to prove that he's not injury prone and stuff like that after the last 2 seasons. Like he's trying to bounce back. And yeah, I can understand he wasn't as productive with Baker Mayfield. And that could have been a reason why they didn't actually submit a claim. Like they could have had a conversation with him. Like you played with him earlier this year. What's this guy like? Um, but I still don't like I think the Rams did this more from themselves than from preventing the 49ers from getting a guy. But I think the ability to prevent a division rival from getting a quarterback, was a nice cherry on top.
Yeah, I think character concerns. I don't know. I think Baker Mayfield might have some character concerns, but this isn't like Johnny Football we're talking about. Like Baker definitely has some, but he's not as bad. I feel as some of the others out there. Uh, and I also feel like a big thing with the character concerns is if you play well, no one cares what your character is. If you play poorly, no one cares how good your character is. Look at Russell Wilson, one of the nicest guys in the world from every report I've seen, and the players on his own team are yelling at him and hating on him because he's just playing so poorly. I feel like Baker goes somewhere, no matter what his character is, if he starts playing really well, that's all they're going to care about. So it's definitely interesting to see, but this is probably a backup quarterback or at least just a quarterback you shouldn't have in fantasy playing for a team that is out of the playoffs. So I think we spent plenty of time on that. You did mention Jimmy Garoppolo. It's worth noting that he is still out for the regular season, but he could return in the playoffs, although it is unlikely. Something to keep an eye on for football purposes, but fantasy purposes, not a huge impact there. Um, so we'll just move ahead again. Got the Titans. They did fire their GM, John Robinson. Fittingly, it sounds like the team was pissed off at him for trading away AJ Brown, and then AJ Brown goes off
Shocker.
against the Titans, and suddenly he loses his job. But we discussed it off the podcast. He made a long laundry list of really questionable signings. The weirdest thing about this, though, is he just signed a 5-year extension back in February. So they still have to pay him for over 4 years. And it's really, really rare to see a team fire a general manager in the middle of a season with a winning record leading a division by 3 games. Like, this is an unprecedented move. So, what kind of impact do you think this will have on the team, if any?
It means Mike Vrabel's job is safe, in my opinion. I think that's the
I
team kind of doubling down on. They don't think that the GM put Mike Vrabel in a good spot, but here they are, like you said, with a winning record. So he's doing his job. But I think that's the only real impact on any kind of the play.
Yeah, and I still think I feel like there has to be something more to this story that has to come out eventually because you mentioned of the extension. Yes, the AJ Brown was appears to be a big whiff. Like you don't trade a guy of his caliber away, uh, a young guy on a team that likes to build through the draft. But GMs make mistakes all the time. For what it's worth, like I wonder if you find out later, like take another guy he drafted, which this taking Jeffrey Simmons was an elite move because he wasn't ready, but they got a great value. He's become one of the best defensive linemen in the year. He's due for a contract this year. Maybe they were worried that they weren't getting this deal done. Maybe Jeffrey Simmons was already what behind the scenes are you worried about losing players down the road? So I think this move could be a good sign for Titans fans. Like, okay, there's no way we're letting Jeffrey Simmons walk out the door. There's no way we're letting our key players walk out the door just because our GM didn't want to pay them to what their value or what the market said they were. So still think something could come out of it, but like I said, on the football field side of it, I don't think too much changes. This team is like by Vrabel, and they embody his personality with the way they play.
I think Jeffrey Simmons could be a factor, but I think it would be more along the lines of how they view the future of their big pieces, the faces of the franchise. I think there's a lot of questions internally about whether or not to move forward with Ryan Tannehill following this year. There's a lot of questions of whether or not to move forward with Derrick Henry following this year. And those are some big decisions and some big monetary decisions. And maybe his viewpoints on those did not mesh well with the team. I do think Vrabel's job was safe. There is rumblings that he might go to Ohio State. I don't even want to pretend those rumors are anything plausible. Um, but I feel like if you have a bad team that's playing well, looks good on the coach, looks bad on the GM, you got a good team but it's not playing well. That looks bad on the coach. And right now, this roster is garbage. It's all backups, and yet they are 7-5 leading a division. I'd say that as bad as the Titans have looked lately, I still would put Vrabel as top 3 for coach of the year.
The other thing I'll say before we move on is you're saying how this roster is not really put together fantastic, yet they're still tight against the salary cap. And I feel like good GMs in today's NFL know how to manipulate that salary cap to push stuff down the road, to get rid of bad contracts, to bring in good contracts, whatever it is. And it doesn't seem like John Robinson had that skill. So it could also, that could have just been another thing that they were looking forward, like you said, at some of these pieces that they want to connect to. And they don't even have the cap flexibility at this point to do it. And maybe he didn't have the answers that they wanted. So
As far as fantasy, I could say that it looked like John Robinson was not willing to make moves. And as soon as this new interim GM has taken over, the Titans have made a lot of signings. It's not big, flashy signings, nobody that we need to really talk about, but they're making moves, which is definitely something to keep an eye on. Another thing is like, look, we talked about it before. Firing somebody mid-season, sometimes it gives a spark. Maybe the team just needed something different. I'm not saying John Robinson was the reason the Titans were playing poorly lately, but maybe this change is a spark. So, fantasy wise, there's a chance that some of these Titans players really take a step forward now, really start playing harder because they're going to rally behind their team that is trying to make a change. But maybe not. Right now, I would say wait and see. Definitely don't make a jump because there's really not many Titans that you can really start at this point. But moving forward, we got our last piece of news. Former Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota officially benched. Desmond Ridder was named the Falcons starting quarterback after their bye this week. Um, Disappointing for me because I'm a big Mariota fan, and I really don't think he was the reason they've been losing games. I think it's just a bad roster. They're trying, but it's a bad roster. But uh, I think it's still a good move. Desmond Ridder was signed. George, I feel like you had some good insights on this. Why don't you tell the people?
So I mean, I've thought even a little deeper than what you and I talked about before the show. We mentioned this was a possibility on our Monday show, and then the Buccaneers went on and won that game, pretty much saying the Falcons aren't going to win their division. So I think there's a good chance that even though Mariota wasn't the reason they were losing, they now see that they're not in the contention anymore. They have a chance to go take a look at their future for a few weeks, especially because this is a quarterback class that we considered very raw. If they liked him, how he was progressing in practice, they can now see him on the field and see then if he has a chance to be the future answer, or if they're going to have to reevaluate going into a good quarterback draft, where they can probably pick up a piece who might be a better prospect than Ridder was coming out of last year's.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He was a third round pick. You got to see him play. Honestly, this might have been the plans the whole time, unless like they were like winning their division. But the bye week, give them 4 weeks. They have a top 10 pick right now. I think they're currently slated at 9th overall. Not that I think, especially in the NFL, I don't like the idea of tanking because, you can still get star players anywhere in the first round of the draft. And I think winning teams build winning cultures. Uh, but I think this allows you to evaluate a young guy. Mariota's not the future. And then if Ritter is not it, which I will say, be careful because if you asked Eagles fans the first 4 games of Jalen Hurts, they would have been like, heck yeah, we need a new QB. And Desmond Ritter is a little bit raw, but he is very athletic. So I'm interested to see him play. But they might be in the CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis conversation come April.
The other thing I'll say is if they do decide to move forward with Ridder or go with another quarterback, Marcus Mariota immediately jumps to near the top of the list of bridge quarterbacks to watch for next year. He might end up on another team starting the start of season again. So
Yeah, I think he definitely proved himself as, not a starting quarterback of the future, but definitely a solid option you can throw in there for now until you do get that guy, that bridge quarterback option. We've seen some like career bridge quarterbacks before. Guys like
Ryan
Ryan
Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick. Yep. Career bridge quarterbacks, but I feel like Mariota definitely jumps up into that conversation. But guys, I think that's enough on the NFL news. Let's go ahead and move on to this week 14 preview because it is Byemagetton 2.0. So we got to tell the people who they're able to start this week because there's really not much out there. So let's get into our week 14 preview.
So, like Tyler said, Byemagetton, 6 teams on bye in our last week of most people's fantasy regular season. The Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, New Orleans Saints, and Washington Commanders. A lot of big names at every single position in that group. And then we got a bunch of injuries that we accumulated over the weeks, mostly last week, on top of it. A lot of guys were going to be like, I don't love this guy, but you're probably going to have to play him. I'm imagining that being the theme to this segment. Let's start off with the New York Jets traveling to a divisional game against the Buffalo Bills. We can start with the Jets side of the ball. Corey Davis did not practice. I mean, I don't think he was somebody that we would probably be clamoring to put in our lineups, but with these rosters right now, maybe you were. He doesn't look like he's going to go. But the Jets have been an interesting team for fantasy lately. Garrett Wilson's been coming back. You have Bam Knight and maybe even potentially Michael Carter. It depends on how that split's going to go. We don't really know. Where are you guys at actually on that running back room right now?
Well, I'll say before we get to the running back room, I just want to throw out there Garrett Wilson's a starter now. I don't care. In fantasy, if you have Garrett Wilson, you're starting him. I feel like we're at that point that I don't really care about the matchup. He's proven himself. He's got to be in your lineup.
Yeah, I agree.
The running back room, Cody, go for it.
I was going to say, just to back up what you're saying, because I was going to do the exact same thing. Garrett Wilson in his 5 games this season that didn't have Zach Wilson. So whether it was Mike White, which is the current quarterback, or Joe Flacco at the beginning of the year, he averaged over 11 targets that turned into 6 catches for 95 yards, or just under 94.2. So those
over
are
10 points
extremely good. It doesn't include the touchdowns, stuff like he had multi-touchdown game 2 weeks ago. Yeah, Garrett Wilson. It's crazy because we haven't seen the Jets like this. Every week starter. And then you mentioned Bam, Zonovan Knight, however you want to call him based on what your platform does. Was a waiver wire pickup. He looked strong last week, but with Michael Carter potentially coming back this week, it does leave some question marks, and this Buffalo Bills defense is very good. So I think I'm out on both of them. I'd feel better about
Cody
Zonovan
never starts running backs.
That's true. If I could, I wouldn't. If Michael Carter's back, I'm definitely out. I'd feel better if I had to play Zonovan without Michael Carter, but I think there might be some better options down the line.
All right. And on the Bills side, I feel like you're playing your normal guys. I mean, you got Josh Allen, you're playing Josh Allen. You got Diggs, you got a player playing Diggs. Devin Singletary, are we in? We out? What are we doing? James Cook, are we in? We out? What are we doing with these running backs?
At this point, I'm in James Cook and out Devin Singletary. I know, Devin Singletary still had a decent game last week. He's been on a bit of a run, but there's something to be said about the fact that James Cook is now surpassing him in carries and touches. We've seen this trend with multiple rookie running backs so far this year. I just feel like he's going to keep moving, progressing. He's going to be the next Rachaad White. He's going to be that guy in that backfield by the end of the season. So I am moving away from Singletary, moving in on Cook.
I still wouldn't play him though. Not in this matchup. The Jets have a good defense.
So I will say that I am in some trouble in some leagues with Byemagetton, some injuries. Potential flex play of Isaiah McKenzie. Yay or nay?
No.
I mean, I heard your options. I think there's a potential. But I'd try to avoid it.
Isaiah McKenzie or Devin Duvernay? That's kind of where I'm at.
I think I'm leaning McKenzie because of the boom or bust kind of thing. I think the floor is higher. The ceiling's probably about the same, but the floor is probably slightly higher.
There's no one on the waiver wire that's better.
That is the waiver wire,
bro. It's so bad.
Dude, how deep is your league?
It's not even that deep. Like,
Okay, we'll talk after the show. To answer the question, I guess because Lamar's out, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But this secondary is so good. Like I think they're like number 3 against wide receivers. Like I put Gabe Davis on the sit list on the article. I didn't even think about Isaiah McKenzie. I'm putting Gabe Davis on the article on the CouchGMs.com. So how can I say start Isaiah McKenzie? And the Jets
options
already
are
beat the Bills
Marquez
once.
Valdez-Scantling, Robert Woods, or DJ Chark are the other options on free agency. Yep,
Yeah.
that silence is exactly right.
But honestly, and of all those names, I think Chark has to be consideration. Just to how
Without
bad
Jamison Williams, I would agree with you. But Jamison Williams is going to start getting more. He's going to start getting more snaps now.
Okay, this dude is coming off of an ACL that he tore in January. Like they were putting him on gunner so he could get used to running in the NFL. He's not going to, play 2 snaps and then come in and be a guy that's taking all these targets away. It's going to take some time. I love Jamison Williams. I mean, let's just talk about the Vikings-Lions game since we're already talking about so much Jamison Williams right now. Like, I'm not saying like everyone go out and start DJ Chark, but he's at least, been, I'm not even going to say good, but okay over the last couple weeks. Jared Goff has looked really good. The Vikings are, giving up through the air. Like, it's not the ideal matchup. Like, I would much rather have better options. But, Isaiah McKenzie in a really good matchup. Devin Duvernay against the Steelers plus a banged-up quarterback, Jay Chark in a game that's high scoring. And we talked about it. Vegas has the Lions winning this game. They have them as 2.5-point favorites.
Which is ridiculous.
But it's not like just have how many one-score games and, the point differential. Like, I think the Vikings finally got to a positive point differential this past week with the win over the Jets. Like, the Lions are a hot team right now, so I might take the flyer on DJ Chark in your situation. But let's talk about some other Lions players. We got to talk about the running backs. DeAndre Swift finally kind of started to look like DeAndre Swift last week. But if you remember back to last episode, I said this was the first week DeAndre Swift was not on the injury report. And guess what? He's back on the injury report this week. Ankle injury. He went limited on Wednesday, back to full participant on Thursday, so that's a good sign. But I'm not going to lie, I have some PTSD of those 3 weeks of full participant, where he only saw 25 snaps. 25% of the snaps.
I feel like the Lions are trying to get Jamal Williams a rushing record. I feel like if they get close to the red zone, they're going to try to get Jamal Williams into that end zone. They really want him to score. I feel like they are finally giving Swift more of the touches outside of that, but I feel like Jamal is still always that touchdown stealing threat. I think Swift is finally taking that step forward. If you are in Byemagetton, you can probably start Swift and feel more comfortable than some of the scrubs on free agency, but I still think if you have the options, I would probably try to leave Swift on your bench. Just as an example, in our league of record, I have Tony Pollard and Zeke both in my starting lineup, and I have DeAndre Swift on the bench.
Their matchup's also prime. And we can actually talk about them next, but we still have to talk about the Vikings side of the ball here. The Lions defense, it's been better lately, but they're still not great. So you're still playing all of your Vikings, I think. Is there anyone that you would not play? I guess Thielen's always the question mark here.
No, you play him.
Just because of the matchup, exactly.
And Kirk Cousins is my stream of the week. Still, the Lions still 32nd to quarterbacks. They're still giving up points. Justin Jefferson, if you have him and you need a win to get in, it seems like a good matchup. I think both quarterbacks. If you need to stream Jared Goff this week, heck, I'm doing it. I didn't because my matchup doesn't matter. But then I was like, for the integrity of the game and a bye week determined can rely on my matchup. I'll actually play a quarterback. So whichever one of you get the bye, you're welcome.
It's not just us two up there. There's like literally 5 teams fighting for 2 spots, but I mean, if he
I
gets the
hope it's
bye,
me.
it's probably because you beat him. You beat me. So, but I appreciate you just for the integrity of the league. I think the Vikings are pretty simple. We can just say play your guys. Moving on to, like we said, the Cowboys, who are hosting the Houston Texans.
Let's go. Game of the week.
Yeah, I mean,
Texas,
not
maybe.
really.
The Battle of Texas.
The Battle of Texas, that's going to be super one-sided. But anyway, the Texans give up a bazillion yards and points to running backs. Zeke and Pollard, doesn't matter. They're split. They're both going to be very solid starts this week. I think playing them both over Swift makes sense, even though Swift isn't even the worst play. Now, the Cowboys' pass-catching options might be more of a question. So the Texans are actually good against receivers and tight ends because they give so many points up to running backs. You're not going to bench Dalton Schultz and you're not going to bench CeeDee Lamb, but I'm going to specifically ask you about Michael Gallup, who's somebody who a lot of people probably grabbed off the wire because they're weak at wide receiver and there's bye weeks and he's been decent lately. Are you playing him in this matchup?
No.
Nope.
I'm not playing
I
Dak
don't like Michael
either.
Gallup in general.
I'm glad I'm not the only one because it seems like everyone loves Michael Gallup, and then there's the three of us sitting here on camera. Like, I don't get it. He has a week here or there, but
If I have Dak, I'm still playing Dak. I feel like
well,
I
yeah.
don't really like my other options, but
Uh,
Cody's saying
Dak
no.
or-
But
I would play Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins all over Dak this week. The guys that are been readily available, and we just saw the Houston Texans give up. Got blown out by the Dolphins. Tua came out for most of the fourth quarter. There was some injury concern with that, but he had 290 yards and they had 36 points because the Texans are that bad. Like Zeke and Pollard both could go for 100 and a touchdown, and Dak throws the ball 9 times. Like that's how bad this team has been. Davis Mills is back starting, so that could be more turnovers. Like Dallas Cowboys, they're already the number one fantasy defense, but they should have a great week this week. And then Brandon Cooks, their best wide receiver, has not practiced all week again. So
Has he been playing?
yeah, he had 2 good weeks after his like kind of holdout temper tantrum. I shouldn't have used the word temper tantrum. That's a bad way to describe it. But like his disappointment with the organization. He came back. I think he had 2 weeks in a row with touchdowns and a couple of catches, and then he got hurt.
look, I'm not starting anybody on this team. Even Dameon Pierce at this point, like, has been risky.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care if Brandon Cooks has been playing better. I'm avoiding the Texans as a whole. I can't do it.
You can still potentially play Pierce by matchup, is where I'm at. This is not the matchup. You're not playing him this week. I'd have to go and quick check what the rest of their schedule looks like to see if you should play him at all. But yeah, no, you're avoiding Texans pretty much at all costs. And it's so sad because we spent no time on them last year. We were actually spending time on them earlier this year because they were doing a couple of things, at least with Dameon Pierce. And now we're right back to where we were.
All right. So, look, I think that's it for Cowboys Texans. I think we spent enough time in Texas. Now we'll go on to Ohio. And we got the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Mixon, full participant. T. Higgins, limited participant with a hamstring injury. He was added to the injury report Thursday. David Njoku was limited with a knee injury. Man, I hope Njoku plays because when he's playing, he is really good this year, but he has not been able to stay on the field. Yeah, I mean, I think on the Bengals side of the ball, you're going to start your guys. You have Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, you have Mixon, and they're all healthy and playing. You're starting them.
And not Pirine. Remind people because they've probably been relying on Pirine the last 2 weeks. Not Pirine.
If you got Joey Bag of Donuts at quarterback, you're going to be playing him. I feel like your Bengals are good to go. And obviously, we got to give some kicker love. Evan McPherson is a solid fantasy kicker. So definitely, if you have him, you should be set. But how about the other side of the ball? How about the Cleveland Browns, unless I missed somebody on Cincinnati that you're playing?
Well, Joe Mixon is a full participant 2 days in a row, but I don't believe he's officially cleared concussion protocol. And we saw him a full participant on Friday of last week and still missed the game on Sunday. So don't go out and cut P. Ryan yet. And if Mixon can't go, P. Ryan is 100% back in your lineup. Great start because this Cleveland Browns are terrible against the run. They're like they're bad, The Houston Texans are like much worse, but that's not saying much because this Cleveland Browns is bad against the run. But on the Cleveland Browns side, we told you so. Like, don't play Deshaun Watson because he hasn't played
Yep.
in over 700 days. And don't play him this week either. This is a good Bengals defense. Underrated, but a good Bengals defense. Don't play Deshaun Watson.
So don't play Deshaun Watson. You probably can play Njoku if he plays because the tight end position's a mess. But where are you at on Amari Cooper? Like, Donovan Peoples-Jones too far down the line, not doing that. But Amari Cooper is still a top 15 wide receiver who, of course, struggled last week because the entire Browns passing game did. But people might be relying on him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for relying on him. Yeah, I think
it sounds bad, but like we said, he's technically a top 15 receiver so far.
He's one of those guys that I feel like it depends on the situation. If you are somebody that's lucky enough to have like Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams as one of your top guys, and you still have like a Chris Godwin as a number 2, or someone along those lines, like you have the luxury, you can bench Amari Cooper and be fine. But it depends on your situation. That's my cop out answer. So I would have to say, if you have Amari Cooper and you're unsure, let us know your lineup question, and I can definitely tell you for sure.
Yeah, I think it's tough because we've also seen like this weird, and we can't explain it, but Amari Cooper has like really bad road versus at home splits, and like that's getting like super analytical, weird things that you can understand. But it's and he's gone over 4 targets on the road twice this season, so he has been most productivity has come at home. So I don't think it's a must. You can't play him. But like Tyler said, if you have Amari Cooper, but you also were lucky enough to get a Garrett Wilson and you took the flyer on a Chris Godwin late, or you have I almost said Christian Watson, but I forgot the Packers don't play because we need more Christian Watson in our life. But Chris Olave, another rookie that has come on, like some of those guys that we took later that have been those late round flyers that you hit on, I think it'd be okay to pull Amari Cooper out of your lineup.
I think that's a good way to wrap up that matchup, and we can move on then to another divisional game of the Philadelphia Eagles traveling up to the New York Giants.
Fun fact.
I typically go ahead.
This game is not in the same state like our last two, but they're the 2 closest stadiums. The Battle of I-76, very close to home for the 3 of us. So there's your fun fact and your geography lesson for today. But you probably came to talk about fantasy. And New York Giants, the big one, Saquon Barkley on Thursday popped up on the injury report with a neck injury. He was limited, so it didn't hold him out completely, but we talked about it with Matt Stafford at the top of the show. Neck injuries, they give you the heebie-jeebies. They make you squirm a little bit, and they're concerning. Also, not like their run defense has, gotten a little bit better with the addition of Joseph and Sue and now Jordan Davis back. So you're still going to play Saquon if he's active. Like there's no way you're benching Saquon in this market if he's active. But as a Saquon owner, you have to be prepared that this could be a letdown week, or he might not be of what we've, what we saw at the beginning of the season and what he started to do the last couple of weeks to get back to that.
Yeah. So like if Saquon doesn't go for some reason, I don't think you're playing Matt Breida. I don't think you're playing any of the wide receivers. I don't know of any tight ends on that team you'd play. The only other person I can say would you play has to be Danny Fullback. Like tough matchup against the pass, tough matchup. I mean, I guess mediocre matchup against the run, and he does do some damage with his legs. Is he a potential streaming option, or are you just going to be like, pretty much all the guys I named earlier are better?
I feel like if the options like that Cody mentioned earlier, like the Kirk Cousins, the Jared Goff, if they're out there, like I'd rather go with them than Vanilla Vic. It depends how deep your league really is if you're going to go with one of them.
Yeah, hopefully if you are listening now and you missed the Monday show, like hopefully like you picked up Derek Carr if that was your quarterback situation and played him against those Rams defense. That is happening as we're recording right now. But George, here's your 2 minutes to talk about your Philadelphia Eagles.
Right. So this matchup, you good?
I said
You
start the
said
clock.
start the
You got
clock.
2 minutes.
You're
Oh, I
wasting your
swear to
time.
God, you said something way worse than that. All right. So this is a much tougher matchup than the Eagles have had against wide receivers in a while. So I know I'm in a league where I'm forced to play Devontae Smith thanks to buys, thanks to injuries. But I would try to avoid him if I could, and I would stick to just AJ Brown. Without Dallas Goedert, there's not a tight end to play. You can probably throw in Miles Sanders. They're probably going to have to try to do some damage on the ground, and he's going to get the volume like he most of the time does. And then you're playing Jalen Hurts. I think it's that simple. Well, Eagles defense too, but they're pretty much an every week starter at this point with how defenses are going.
Yeah, I think you wrapped up the Eagles nicely, and I'm going to transition us into the next game with another quarterback that out.
How sad is it that we're this late into the season, and yet the New York Giants might be the toughest team the Eagles have played, outside of maybe primetime Kirk Cousins? Like, what the F is happening this season?
I mean, I was saying defense specifically, but yeah, it still might be in general too.
I'm going to ignore that comment because I refuse to believe that the Packers weren't a tough matchup.
Yeah, all right. So next game, definitely. Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar did not practice and he is not expected to play. Tyler Huntley is expected to start. Before we get to the rest of the injuries, Tyler Huntley, is he a fantasy quarterback? We saw him last year when Lamar went down. He is a running quarterback just like Lamar. Steelers defense has been performing a little bit better lately, though. How do we feel about Huntley?
I think
I like
Huntley, to me, is jumping up in that group that we've been mentioning most of the show, mostly because of his rushing ability. Like, they scored 10 points last week. He played majority of the game, but they let him throw 32 passes. He still went through for almost 200, and he ran for almost 50. Yeah, 40 and a touchdown on the ground. Like, it doesn't matter how many points they're going to put on the board. They're letting him sling it. He's still got the rushing ability. He's right up there with Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff.
Yeah, George, I feel like you have to deal with listening about Ravens talk more than the rest of us. Since you're dating a Ravens fan, do you have any updates on J.K. Dobbins?
No, and it's super hard to get updates on somebody when they're like activated the practice window, because we don't get them on the injury report or anything. As of now, I would assume that even if he does play, he's going to be super limited. I would say he's probably not going to go, but the running backs are going to be a split regardless. Like, we thought it was going to be Gus Edwards last week, and then Kenyon Drake ended up basically matching him in carries. So I don't love it regardless, like any of them regardless of J.K. Dobbins' status. If I had to play one, it'd be Gus Edwards regardless too, as well.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to have more rushing yards, Gus Edwards, or wow, I just totally blanked on his name.
Tyler Hunt.
Who's the other running back?
Najee Harris.
Kenyon Drake.
Oh, Kenyon Drake.
No. Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, or Tyler Huntley. Which one's going to have more rushing yards?
Tyler Huntley.
Didn't he have more rushing yards last week?
He, in fact, did. 41 for him, 29 Kenyon Drake, and only 12 for Gus Edwards.
Anytime a quarterback is out rushing you, I don't like the running backs. I'm benching them.
Yep. But yeah, playing Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, I'd play Tyler Huntley. I'd play him over Daniel Jones, who we just talked about. But one name, and if you drafted him, and I mean, I think he's still technically, tight end 2 on the year. But don't forget, Tyler Huntley played in 5 games last year when Lamar got hurt. And Mark Andrews. So if you have him, you're definitely playing him. But this might be a week to, pay up for Mark Andrews in terms of daily fantasy as well. Because in his 5 games last year, he had 8 catches on 10 targets for 73 yards, 11 catches on 11 targets for 115 yards touchdown, 10 catches on 13 targets for 136 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty sure that was against Green Bay. 6 targets, 6 catches, 89 yards, 16 targets, 8 catches, 85 yards. Tyler Huntley throws to Mark Andrews. So might not be the, advice because if you were playing him anyways, but I like him in daily fantasy options this week just because he sees so much the volume is even more with Tyler Huntley than it is with Lamar Jackson.
Still saw 7 targets last week also, so it's not like he wasn't involved.
Yeah. Yeah, and we discussed it a little bit earlier. We don't really like any of these wide receivers, um, unless you're in hell like I am with players. But on the Pittsburgh Steelers side, we had Najee Harris was limited. Deontay Johnson started as limited. He then did not practice on Thursday. So we have, not too many injuries on the Pittsburgh Steelers side. Najee Harris, I would expect him to go.
Mhm.
He's the kind of guy that we're like, look, you got to bench him. He's just not good anymore. But with Byemagetton, the amount of injuries out there, I feel like in a lot of situations, you're probably playing Najee Harris because you don't really have many other options. Um, but I want to ask, how do we feel about the potential flex play, with it being Byemagetton, of George Pickens, the man who one week will look like the next big thing at wide receiver, and then the following week will absolutely disappear? How do we feel about Pickens?
So it's been a long time since we've seen a Steelers team without Ben Roethlisberger going against the Ravens. But this is one of those rivalries that I think you kind of throw the defensive rankings out the door. It can either be 7-7 going into the final drive of the game, or it could be this high scoring crazy game. It's totally unpredictable. But I've liked George Pickens better than Deontay Johnson for the last few weeks, even though he is kind of inconsistent. So I'm go ahead and throw out George Pickens as a potential flex.
Yeah, I like it better if Deontay doesn't go, but I think
Yeah.
so. Deontay is this year's version of Jacoby Myers. Like he just hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Like that's it. Like he's still seeing like 6 to 8 targets a game and stuff like that. This is a good matchup. I put him as a start on the article this week. This is before the hip injury that popped. Um, so you have to monitor that. But Ravens' pass defense has been bad all season, and I think Kenny Pickett hasn't looked like elite yet, but he's starting to he's starting to get comfortable playing the NFL game. He's starting to get
Mhm.
players more involved. So I do like the catchers this week of Deontay Johnson, of Pat Freiermuth, of George Pickens. They're all like the tight end is the tight end, but they're both flexible guys. They're shots at the board, but I think this is a week that you would take those shots.
All right, I'll throw out a couple names here real quick, and then we'll move on just to give people kind of a gauge. So, George Pickens or Adam Thielen?
Thielen,
Pickens.
bro, it's the
All right.
Lions.
Okay.
All right, George Pickens or Michael Gallup?
Pickens.
George Pickens or Tyler Boyd?
Pickens. Unless Higgins is out.
Yeah, I'm with Cody. Same.
If that
How about-
hamstring doesn't hold up for Higgins.
All right, last one, Hollywood Brown or Pickens?
What's that matchup here again? Quick. Sorry.
Hollywood.
New England,
Hollywood's playing New
Pickens.
England.
I'm taking Hollywood.
Man,
Hollywood's still
we have some difference in opinions.
Hollywood's
Yeah.
still seeing the targets, and DeAndre Hopkins is dealing with an illness. And we talked about this a little bit before. Like, sometimes players still play with an illness, but they've gotten sick and they've lost 7 pounds in a week, and they're just not fully recovered yet, even though they're trying to go out there and gut it out. So I do like Hollywood Brown potentially this week. So I'd go with him over Pickens.
All right, last person we'll throw out, then we'll move on to the next matchup. Pat Freiermuth, is the tight end market bad enough that he has to be a starter at this point? Is that kind of where we're at?
He's like tight end 6 that's left. But actually, just to mention tight ends, Darren Waller and Dallas Goedert both are eligible to come back next week. And the word is Goddard and Waller might be week 16, if not week 15. So we might be getting a little bit of help.
I mean,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that next week once we come to it, when we see more come out about those tight ends. But let's focus more on this week. So let's go into our next game. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. I'll make it quick and easy. Traylon Burks did not practice, concussion. If he goes, potential flex play. If he doesn't go, obviously you're not going to play him. Keep an eye on him following the next week. Hopefully he comes back soon. Derrick Henry did not practice. It was not injury related. He has rest days every single week. It's normal. Don't Don't get crazy about it. If you have Henry, it is the Jags. You can play Henry this week. You should be totally fine. Outside of those
That was a
two,
question.
last week I said bench Derrick Henry, so that was that's why I'm throwing it back in there. But outside of those two, you are not playing a Titan.
If you're in a 2-quarterback league, I'd play Tannehill.
We get to watch Tyler on the phone as we move on to the Jaguar side of the ball. Maybe he'll unmute it and give us a little bit of a peek into the conversation.
Not even gonna, pick up on what I was saying about Tannehill. Like that at all.
What'd you say?
I said if
I got distracted.
You got distracted. I said if you're in it, like if you're Kirk Cousins and them aren't available, or you're in a 2-quarterback league going through buys, like Ryan Tannehill hasn't been elite this year by any means. But the Jags do give up over 16 points to the fantasy quarterback position. The Titans have owned the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's divisional, but they've dominated this series. Like, I think you could do a lot worse this week than Ryan Tannehill in a pinch.
Okay. I mean, so where does he fall in the group of quarterbacks we're talking about? Like, would you play him over Cousins, over Huntley, over Goff?
He would probably be. I'd play him above Daniel Jones, above Russell Wilson, who's playing Russell Wilson these days, anyways. Though,
yeah.
Just I was looking at the matchups. I'd play him. Like, I'm not going to get on. White has looked decent. Like, I'd play him over Zach White this matchup.
Mike White, yeah.
Yeah, Zach Wilson, Mike White. You got it. Thank you for correcting me. I'd play him over Mac Jones against the Cardinals on Monday night. So not like a must play. Like, it's more for your super flex leagues, or, if you were, had a quarterback and then you were relying on Justin Fields and now you need another one, Ryan Tannehill is there. But let's talk about the Jags, because another name that would be on this list as potential quarterbacks is Trevor Lawrence, but he's dealing with, somehow it's only listed as a toe. But when I saw that play, I thought it was
ankle or foot. What? And then we thought it was knee originally. It's just moving down his leg, and then it's going to be gone, right?
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. That's how I feel like they're describing his injury right now. But if he doesn't
you missed that, Tyler. I'm sorry.
He'll have to watch to listen.
Sorry, my Grubhub delivery driver could not find our apartment, so had to go.
Priorities, honestly.
Priorities.
Sorry, go ahead about Lawrence. Keep going.
Yeah, he's DMP, and we don't know if he's going to play this week. That also means if he doesn't go, their backup is CJ Beathard. He used to play in San Francisco. If you don't remember him, that's probably why. He wasn't like the greatest quarterback. Now, they're really good against the run, so I don't love Trevor Etienne this week, especially with no Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't been like a must start. He looked really good for a couple weeks. He's had some rough weeks there, so I would try to pivot away. The Titans it is divisional, but they have given up through the air. So even if CJ Beathard plays, I still think you can throw Christian Kirk in your lineup as a flex option. Like, I'd still play Kirk over George Pickens, and we can just do that whole list again. Hit the back 35 times, and you'll get that list again.
The Titans' top 3 corners are all injured. So the number 1 corner for the Tennessee Titans right now is an undrafted free agent rookie who got absolutely murdered by A.J. Brown last week. So I think you are totally fine, even if it's CJ Beathard. There's going to be some passing room. I agree. Christian Kirk should be in your lineup.
Is there enough passing room for Zay Jones?
Honestly, he's a potential flex play. Like, Zay Jones is somebody that I am eyeing up in that league where I have no receivers. Zay Jones is never going to be that guy that you're like, oh, yes, like, I got Zay Jones, I'm definitely going to win this week. Obviously, no one's going to say that. But I do think he is a potential flex play. It depends where your team is at, how many injuries he got, but he has a chance to be thrown in there. I'd honestly, right now, I have him ranked right around George Pickens. So,
right, and then there's always a potential dartboard throw for Evan Ingram in that matchup there as well. I think we can move on to 4 o'clock now. The 4 o'clock window starts off with the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Denver Broncos. And my question is, How many points are the Chiefs going to win by?
Well, can I just say before we start, thank you so much, NFL. I know flexing matchups is a normal thing for the NFL to do, but flexing Kansas City versus Denver out of prime time, like we've been tortured enough with primetime Broncos. Thank you so much for stepping up, correcting your mistake, and taking them out. My favorite thing was the tweet that I saw that announced the flexing. The first tweet that came out said the NFL has decided to move potential MVP winner Patrick Mahomes out of prime time to put in this other game. Like, they sounded so angry. Nobody wants to see Chiefs Broncos. Nobody.
No.
I don't care.
And it's
I don't
not
care
the
if it's
Chiefs'
Chiefs.
fault. It is the Broncos'
Watch
fault.
the Broncos win this week.
I hope they do.
Like
hope they
when
finally
the
figure it
Chiefs lost to the Colts earlier this season. So like if they like who the Chiefs play next week? Is this a trap game? Like I'd not be surprised if for some reason like this game gets flexed out and then it's like McManus 58-yard field goal because he couldn't hit the 60-yarder to win the game. Oh, he couldn't Denver. So 60-yard field goal to win the game against the Chiefs. Like game of the week because it got flexed.
The Chiefs have Houston next week. I'm sorry.
100% not a trap game.
It's not a trap game. How did the Chiefs get this easy of a schedule? I mean, come on. Yeah, fantasy. Sorry. Let's get on track. Broncos country. Don't ride with anybody. I'm not starting anyone. I don't get Jerry Jeudy. I mean, Cortland Sutton. They're both injured anyway. Kendall Hinton. No. Greg Dulcich is probably the only person on the entire roster that I would start. Am I wrong? Is there anybody else?
Desperation Latavius Murray play?
I mean, I guess.
He needs volume.
Running backs are so bad this week.
Okay. Latavius Murray or Bam Knight versus the Bills?
If Michael Carter plays, I might go Murray.
Yeah, I'm going Murray just because of the Michael Carter situation, and the Bills' defense is better against the run than the Chiefs.
Damian Pierce or Latavius Murray?
Murray?
Give me Pierce on that one.
Chiefs defense is not fantastic, but they're going to be up by 1.5 billion, so it's kind of hard to say play a running back, but it's the best Broncos offensive weapon at this point.
Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, or Latavius Murray?
Yeah. Broncos country,
Murray.
let's cry. I guess Latavius Murray. I mean, congratulations,
running
guys.
back fantasy owners, let's cry.
Yeah, hopefully you're not in that situation. Isaiah Pacheco or Latavius Murray?
Isaiah Pacheco.
Interesting. So he's done nothing. So
he has gotten 15 points back-to-back weeks, Mr. Nothing.
Latavius Murray or Rashad Penny on IR. Like, I feel like that's where we're at.
I might play Rashad Penny. No, I'm kidding.
It's sad. Let's go on to the Chiefs. I want to talk some football, and there's nothing in Denver. Broncos country, it's dry. To talk about? But Chiefs,
Kelsey,
Travis Kelce. The receivers. I think the receivers are definitely interesting to talk about. I mean, Pacheco is, you got, he's a dart throw. But these receivers, like, is it Juju? Is it MVS? Is it somebody else that's going to step forward? Like, are any of these receivers startable? Are none of them startable? What are we thinking here?
None.
Juju at desperation.
Juju or Pickens? I feel like that's like the line this week.
Juju or Pickens? That's a good one.
Juju always has the targets. He just doesn't always get the stats. And I feel like
go
he's that breakout game away because as long as you keep getting those targets, eventually he's going to get those stats.
I think you're letting how bad the Broncos offense, trickle into how good this, like forgetting how good this secondary is in Denver.
It's true. It's true. They've never scored 18 points, but they only give up 18 points twice. It's just the Chiefs are a dominant offense, so I expect them to at least put up 21 or more on them.
I guess I'll go George Pickens. He talked me into it.
I'll also probably go Pickens, but I don't think Juju's really far behind. They probably would be like, it'd be like 29 and 30 or something like that on your ranking. Like they're right next to each other.
All right, let's go ahead and move. Let's move on. Next game kind of sucks.
I agree.
Not gonna lie. Carolina Panthers at Seattle Seahawks.
Let's do Panthers first because Seahawks have a ton of injuries.
Seahawks are a mess.
I like Foreman.
he did not practice, but he was limited on Thursday. Did not practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. So that's good. That's a good sign. You like Foreman?
As a
So like
potential,
he's dealing with I think it was an ankle and a chest or something like that. But you also got to consider that he's also coming off of a bye week. So maybe they're just, easing him back in after the bye, but the fact that he had the week off already, I'd be shocked if he didn't go.
yeah, and this Seattle Seahawks, they're ranked 29th against fantasy rank 30 points, and Foreman had double-digit performances in 2 of his last 3 games before the bye. So I think I like him as a start this week for buys. He's one of my, I think more tolerable spot starts at running back.
Daniel
And if he
Jones
doesn't go,
or Sam
Chuba
Darnold?
Hubbard is a...
I'm sorry, what?
Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. The Seahawks always seem to be in high-scoring games. Opposing quarterbacks are there. Sam Darnold really didn't look that bad last week. Vanilla Vic, Sam Darnold.
Call me crazy. I'll go Darnold.
Ryan Tannehill. You were talking to Grubhub, and I was talking up Ryan Tannehill.
Wow. I mean, he has 2 injured ankles, so that's kind of impressive that you're talking up an old man with 2 hurt legs. But
you'll have to go back and listen to my Titans Jag stuff that you missed.
Oh yeah, because he also sung about Trevor Lawrence. But anyway,
yeah, man, crazy stuff on this episode. You should order Grubhub
I go
more
to get
often.
my Chick-fil-A, and boom, it's just like craziness happens.
Seattle, though, we got to talk about them.
Okay.
First of all, Metcalf.
Really?
He popped up on the injury report late on Thursday with a hip injury. Geno Smith, right shoulder, popped up, limited. Tyler Lockett still healthy, but he scored in 5 straight games. So, when does that streak end? Coming back, that's the big question. DJ Dallas did not practice. Kenneth Walker did not practice. Travis Homer, limited practice. And it doesn't sound like Walker's going to go. You don't have DJ Dallas seems like a stretch. Do you remember Tony Jones Jr., the guy from the Saints? Cause he'd be the next guy up in Seattle.
Homer.
But he's banged up too with a knee injury.
None.
They're limiting Homer. I'm still saying Homer because we're worried because it says limited participant for Travis Homer, but he was completely cleared, and I think they're just easing him back.
Yeah, I'm out. That's a no from me, dog.
Even in this matchup.
Yep.
Travis Homer or Latavius Murray?
If there's no Walker in Dallas, go Homer.
Okay.
Bro, I don't. Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill at running back.
This is terrible.
Okay.
And for the love of God, can we please start Tyler Lockett? I'm tired of this whole slander on Lockett every week. Oh, I really don't think he's that good. Every week he's good. Every week he's good all season. Shut up about the Tyler Lockett hate. He's in your lineup at this point until proving otherwise. I had to get that out there. Sorry.
There's 3 games left, and this episode's been something.
Also, don't chase the points, speaking of the Seahawks, of Noah Fant. I know he missed just tight end 2 last week because he caught a touchdown, so that's how tight ends work. Don't chase the points. The Carolina Panthers are actually pretty good against fantasy tight ends. They're top 10.
Tight ends
don't chase the points.
Weird.
I was gonna say, Tyler and I talked about it on our Tuesday show. There were literally 5 of them over 10 points, and neither of them were Andrews or Kelsey. It was just weird.
Speaking of who was tight end 1, though, Cade Otton plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're not chasing those points either because he's going up against the San Francisco 49ers, who are the number 1 team against tight ends. So we're not playing Cade Otton. Not fantasy relevant, but Tristan Wirfs is DNP, so that is protecting Tom Brady. And this
already can't be protected.
D-line. So I'm worried. I wouldn't play Tom Brady this week. I would not. Because
I'm sorry. I have to pause. I was looking up the stats, or I would have said it earlier. The top 10 tight ends based off of fantasy points last week. You ready for this list? Top 10 last week. Taysom Hill, Noah Fant, Cade Otton, Greg Dulcich, Evan Engram, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, Chigoziem Okonkwo, and Connor Hayward. That was your top 10 tight ends.
Who is Connor Hayward? I've heard of the rest of them.
He's the
He got
Steelers
8
tight end
points for
behind
the
Hayward.
Steelers.
So the
behind
Steelers had
Freiermuth.
2 top 10 tight ends, and he probably scored like 2 points, but was still a top 10 tight end.
No, he got a
He had
touchdown.
8.
Oh, touchdown. There's your answer.
Yeah, he had like a 2-yard touchdown.
Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce both finished outside the top 10. Out of the top 10 tight ends, like almost none of those guys are people that you're like, oh, I got to start them. Like it was bad. Tight ends are
sounds like
such a
I
dark throw.
honestly think this offseason we're going to have one episode we're really going to have to dive into. At this point, does the tight end position need to become a flex? I think there's a real conversation, but we'll save that for the offseason.
Yeah, let's keep moving forward. Sorry, this episode's already longer than usual.
It's all good. We're having fun, so hopefully the listeners are too. Buccaneers. Rachaad White. We're still in on him as
Yep.
Well, this is a terrible matchup, so like
It is. So that's why I'm probably not playing Fournette if I can help it.
Yeah, I'm not playing either running back if I can help it. I mean, before you ask me Latavius Murray or Rachaad White, like Rachaad White, but
I wasn't going to.
But no, it's the Niners defense is no joke. Honestly, I'm at the point where I'm like, I'd play Mike Evans, I'd play Chris Godwin because they're your star receivers. I feel like if you have them, you got to put them in your lineup. But even with them, like I would have low expectations of them doing anything too spectacular, and I'm not playing anything outside of those two. The Niners defense is legit.
Yeah, I'm benching Mike Evans for Garrett Wilson this week. I mean, that's a lot easier said than done how Wilson is playing, but I am benching Mike Evans for someone else. So if you can find a way, definitely don't do it. But the 49ers,
my favorite Buccaneers play this week is Ryan Suckup. Because I don't see them getting the ball past the 30 too much, so they're going to kick like they're going to have 9 points going into the fourth quarter, and Suckup's going to be doing great.
Okay, that was too much kicker talk for this episode. We've already talked about.
I filled our quota. We're good. Go ahead,
dude. Chiefs Broncos is going to be game of the week, and the Bucs are going to hang 45 on the 49ers. Like football's broken this year. I'm sure it's going to happen. 49ers side of the ball. It is worth mentioning that Christian McCaffrey was limited. Deebo Samuel limited. These are, two big name fantasy players. Deebo, I'm a little bit on edge with. I feel like I wanted to play him 2 weeks ago, but I was afraid because of the injury, and he immediately missed time because of injury. And George, you gave me the same, nope, put in Deebo, and he caught one pass and was out for the game. He did play more last week, but look, these kinds of injuries, they linger. Like, I'm still a little on edge about him.
So he was not out for the rest of that game. He wasn't involved in the offense. Last week, he did actually very good. It's not the hamstring anymore. That's why I'm not worried. He's dealing with a thigh bruise. They're just limiting his practice reps. But if he played last week when he was the most sketchy, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, there's no way I'm not playing Deebo.
I'm not saying I'm not playing Deebo. Like, I don't want it to sound like that. No, like if I have Deebo's in my lineup, I'm just trying to limit my expectations. I'm not trying to go into a game saying that like I need 20 from Deebo to win my matchup and feeling like I got a good shot. Like, I'm hoping for 10. Like, I know Deebo has the potential for more, but I'm hoping for around 10. That's where I'm trying to put my expectations.
I think that's valid with Brock Purdy at quarterback. You guys talked about, the whole Jimmy G thing. Like, he looked pretty good, his limited action, but now teams are going to be able to game plan for him, game plan for Mr. Irrelevant, like game plan for that guy. And they have their 2 top weapons are banged up. So it will be an interesting matchup. Like the Buccaneers defense isn't the defense that won the Super Bowl, not the defense that was last year, but they still have some good pieces on that. They can still get some pressure. They can still make plays in the secondary. So I understand.
The tight end market is bad enough. You're playing Kittle, but with that defense being that good, are you playing Ayuk with Purdy?
Ooh.
I'm limiting at Deebo if I can help it.
Ayuk or George Pickens. I'd probably pick Pickens in this matchup. Ooh, different there. With Brock Purdy, I got to see it to believe it because, Ayuk has been good, but he wasn't doing much with Trey Lance. It wasn't until Jimmy G came back in that he really started to pick up his. So I have to see it to believe it with Brandon Ayuk.
So I guess as a whole, we are really not playing many people from this matchup. I guess you can say, fantasy wise, this game's not going to be Purdy. Going on to the next game, because I just made a George joke. We got the Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Chargers for Sunday Night Football. Mike Williams, full participant in practice. Are we playing Mike Williams, or are we afraid after what happened last time where he kind of came out and immediately got hurt again?
Man, there's been so many people, even though there's 6 buys and all these injuries, that were like, I don't love it. Somebody's got to be in your lineup again. I think Mike Williams has to be that guy. We just have to be like, yep, got to try it.
So here's the thing, though. It's Thursday. We're recording this. He did go to full participant. They say it's a game time decision. Are you risking it then? Because it's the Sunday night game. That's my big concern with Mike Williams. I have to know he's playing before the 1:00 games on Sunday start.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's a sketchy proposition. I mean, you could try to go get DeAndre Carter.
He's also on the
and
injury
handcuff yourself, but not that.
If a guy like Josh Palmer is still on free agency, like I feel like you could snag him and you can take the risk. If a guy like Jacoby Myers, who plays Monday night, is available on free agency and you're able to snag him, then I feel like you can take the risk. If you don't have one of those guys, then I probably wouldn't take the risk and I would probably bench him. But honestly, regardless, I think I'm not taking the risk. I mean, I know what Mike Williams can do, and I know what you're saying with the whole, we're already benching everybody else, but I still feel like I'm not rushing in, especially the way that the Chargers receivers have been playing. Like Keenan Allen looks back, and Josh Palmer looks solid. Like Palmer has earned his reps in this team. Like the Chargers don't have to go out there and force Mike Williams in. They have the ability to kind of take it easy with him and ease him back in. So I feel like at least for this first game, I would probably not play him.
But honestly, the biggest person who's taken a hit by these injuries coming back or whatever has been Austin Eckler. Like Austin Eckler's still doing fine, but he was RB1 for majority of the season. And now he's sitting here riding a group of games where he had like 11, 9, 10. Like, it's just not what we've seen.
Don't do the whoop-de-doo sign. That's good for running backs this year. Okay?
It is good for running backs this year. And it's showing by the fact that he's still like hovering at running back 2, despite that. But it's not the 20 points per game, the 16 points per game that we were getting in the first 8 weeks.
Yeah, but you're still playing Austin Eckler.
I'm not saying that.
Temper your expectations. We do have another team here, Miami Dolphins. Who are we playing on the Dolphins side of the ball?
Real quick, Mike Williams back. Does that change Gerald Everett a tight end play? Because he's been one of the few.
So bad, you still got to do it.
Well, he's actually been he hasn't been like elite, but he's been one of the few consistently like 5 to 7 points a game. So
maybe it's 4 to 6 points per game now. I don't know.
All right,
I think it's gonna be.
You were taking us to the Dolphins. Tua a little banged up with his ankle injury. Jalen Waddle a little banged up with his injury. That is of Wednesday. So we were expecting both of those guys to go. Tua, Waddle, Hill, they're in your lineup. The big question is running back, because the Chargers are right up there with the Texans and the Browns in terrible run defense. 2 weeks ago, it looked like it was Jeff Wilson. He wasn't very involved last week. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, a one. Neither. I can't even remember. I haven't done it in so long. Wilson, Mostert,
Jeff Wilson,
neither or both.
Raheem Mostert. Yeah, there you go. You got it. I'll go both. Because you can worry about the fact that Jeff Wilson only had 1 carry. Raheem Mostert wasn't exactly super involved either. They just didn't run the ball. They were down most of the game. They're facing the best run defense in the NFL. So that's going to be a split, but I think they're both going to be super effective.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Don't sound so excited about it.
Okay.
It's not a...
That answer only could mean one question.
I hate playing 2 running backs from one team. I hate it. And like, even with Zeke and Pollard going against the worst defense in the NFL, I'm still like, I guess I'll play them both. Like, I hate it. I'm not that kind of person. So this is definitely not as thrilling of a backfield. So both, I could see why, but I'm not jumping.
I don't think we're advocating playing them both if you have both. I think you pick
Oh
one,
yeah,
go with your
no.
gut. I don't think it's like I think both are playable as
Yeah, don't
fantasy
force him in your
options.
lineup either. Like, no,
It's just
I
like
wouldn't play them
Kareem
both over
Hunt in
Swift.
Cleveland. Like some weeks you just play Kareem Hunt. Like the matchup is good enough.
Yeah.
And you know he'll get some carries because it is a big enough. AJ Dillon, he's not playing this week, but kind of the same thing. Some weeks you just have
It's
to play him because
honestly
the matchup's so good.
nicer than playing both of them because these two are probably going to be about a 50-50 split with how it's been kind of shaken out, as opposed to the other guys you mentioned are like 35% snap players. So you got a better chance of both of them doing well when you look at it that way too.
Last thing I'll say for this matchup, bet the over. Whatever the over's at, I don't care.
I'm gonna look
Bet
it
the
up while
over.
George takes us into the next our final game because I'm
Our
curious.
final game, Monday Night Football, another exciting matchup. The New England Patriots traveling to the Arizona Cardinals. Damian Harris did not participate in practice on Thursday. That's obviously the first injury report of a Monday Night Football contest. So that eliminates any chances of you playing him, I think. I don't like it so as it is. And then if he's going to be a game time decision going into Monday, don't touch it. But Ramondre Stevenson will continue his reign as a solid fantasy running back.
Agreed.
All right, quick question. Not fantasy related. Just because,
Okay.
this is Couch GMs. We get off track.
52.
Who has been the most disappointing team based off of just these three? Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, Arizona Cardinals. Which of those three has been the most disappointing this season?
Chargers. Because I'm gonna tell you, the Raiders might make the playoffs. They have a really easy the next 5 games, and they could squeeze in. They have a realistic shot at that 7 seed. We kind of saw them do it last year too. They let go. Gruden got let go. They got behind Bisaccia. They squeaked into the playoffs. Would not be surprised that happened again with the Raiders.
They have to pass the Chargers to get there too, which is even funnier. And it's totally possible because the Chargers, I know Tyler likes this comparison too. The Chargers are the Los Angeles Angels of football. They can have the best players on their roster, and all they do is find a way to lose close games.
Okay. I have another question. And because this
Okay.
is our show and we can just go off on tangents. There's been some rumors that Sean Payton wants to come back for the Chargers. Obviously Brandon Staley's not going to throw the game to get fired. But like, do you think there's some people in the organizations like kind of hoping that they don't make the playoffs?
You don't have to not make the playoffs to fire a coach. Just ask the Titans. They fired a coach after winning a playoff game once.
Yeah.
I think Sean Payton is enough of a talent and the kind of guy that the Chargers need to like break that curse that they'd be dumb not to make that move if he's interested.
Okay. But let's get back to Monday Night Football. Patriots Cardinals, if we were discussing.
I like this head coach talk better.
Dude, we got all offseason, and that's a good reminder that, well, one, if you made it this far, thank you. But a good reminder that we don't stop in the offseason. We have these conversations all year long, but we do have to finish this last game. Outside of Ramondre Stevenson, which Patriots are you playing?
Flex potential Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. Okay. Cardinals side. Kyler Murray, you're still playing him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Hopkins, I guess we need more information, and by Sunday we'll have that on the illness. Is this like, the 24-hour bug? Is it a legit stomach flu? Like, what is the actual illness? We probably not know the exact thing, but we'll know, like, will he be ready to go? But we saw with, AJ Brown just 2 weeks ago, he was out with an illness and he said after the game, like, I lost 7 pounds this week. I just didn't have the energy. So I do have some concerns about DeAndre Hopkins, depending on how serious this is.
Look, I'm pretty sure I can get a report that says DeAndre Hopkins broke his arm, lost an eye, and has Nathan Peterman throwing him the ball, but is still expected to play. And I'd still be like, yeah, I'll play him. I'll put him in my lineup. Like,
okay,
I don't care. Like, D-Hop is just a next level receiver. I understand the risk of him being sick. It might not have the energy. Maybe tamper your expectations if you can, but if you have D-Hop and he's playing, he's in your lineup.
I'm with you.
I will say this, too, because it is the final week of the fantasy playoffs, and as
D-Hop
we
or
wrap
George
up these
Pickens?
games, no, I'm not going to say that. You know, if you're in a game you have to win, right? Sometimes it's better to go out swinging with your star players, like a DeAndre Hopkins who might be sick, than trying to get cute and being like, you know what? I play Zay Jones with CJ Beathard because it's a better matchup.
And if you happen to get to a situation where you go into Monday night and DeAndre Hopkins is questionable and ends up not playing because he's not right, you can go out there and be like, I tried it with DeAndre Hopkins. I couldn't bench him because he was a guy. And then you add like Greg Dortch because it looks like Rondale Moore is not going to go. So it's going to be the two-headed monster of Hollywood Brown and Greg Dortch. Like there's ways to, back yourself up if you're worried about him not playing.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Dortch.
Exactly.
He had a good year.
He's had some fantasy relevant weeks. He just is buried on a depth chart behind three guys that are so talented.
I really wish Trey McBride became something since Zach Ertz got out. I
really wish like 8 tight ends became something this year.
I really wish a tight end
became
something. Yeah. Anybody?
But you know what?
Foster Moreau, why aren't you better? Be better. Greg Dulcich, you're like this close to being good. Like this close. Every week you're good enough to be playable, to be rosterable, but you're not good. Like why? Tight ends. Why
blaming Dulcich on the fact that he's on the Broncos offense. If he was on another offense, I think he'd be fine.
Oh
God. Broncos country.
All right, before we get deep into the Broncos, let's wrap this one up. Good luck to anyone out there that is a must-win matchup. If you get to cruise easy and don't have a tough game, you're not sweating it out, we envy you. But as always, thanks for listening.
All right, and the key word for this week is Broncos country. If you heard this entire podcast, you got to this point, and you message us, Broncos country, we will give you a shout out on the next podcast. Congratulations for making it through this entire podcast. But no, in all seriousness, guys, thank you so much for listening. Please reach out to us. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. Let us know what you want to add. Let us know what you want us to take away. Let us know if there's some guys that you are unsure about. This is the last week to try to get into the fantasy playoffs. You do not want to lose because you're too afraid to ask for help. Please ask us. We will help you set your lineup. Let us help you win a championship. Either way, thank you so much for listening. And this podcast is so much more fun for us and more fun for you when you get involved.
Yes, it is Tyler. Thank you all one more time for listening into the Couch GMs podcast. For Cody Roadcap and Tyler Snyder, I'm George Kerth, and we'll see you in the playoffs. Woo!